The forest nails the feeling of a forest. The introduction doesn't really make the feeling of nature well, but that's more focused on introducing the story. It knows the environment can speak for itself. Forests are beautiful, seemingly infinite from the inside. The surprisingly realistic sounds of the forest help give the calming feeling being outside can give you. It isn't just about the looks, though. It also knows what it's like to live in the pure nature of this setting. It imparts a strong sense of surviving through your own wit, making you build most of the tools that will help you along the way. It enraptures you with the size of its pillars, the scale of the large fields. Something that only a few experience is that terrifying experience alone, and worse, at night. One thing that persists in forests, the real life ones, is the feeling of being watched. Humans never really went into the woods all by themselves. If we ever had work in them, it'd be better to go with someone else. After all, there are dangerous things out there. Being alone in the forest isolates you in a place where we've never really been isolated. This isolation is strange, especially when you're in such a large open space. There's plenty of places to hide all around you. It makes you think that something is there, a feeling that there's something hiding behind you, making a terrifying image of a hunter that hides with the greatest ability. It implants an image of something otherworldly always being with you. The forest knows you feel that, and it doesn't hold back. Now, I have never been on an alien planet, so I don't know if Subnautica nails the same feeling of its setting, but I imagine if I had the same experience, I may say the same. It does, however, give you a strong feeling of unending wonder and curiosity. The world we live in is one we populate all corners of. Even so, we still find new species every day, hidden under layers and layers of dark abyssal depths. We haven't explored the full extent of the ocean floor. The scale of this is revealed every single time that we find a new, almost alien species living on our planet, something we'd never even expect to see. These creatures can never appear on land. The environment would melt them from the inside out, and diving down to see these undiscovered creatures isn't something the average person can afford, let alone mentally prepare for. Subnautica allows you to explore that ocean. Even if this is an alien planet, these massive, sneaky, dangerous animals could easily exist on Earth. This time, you aren't alone with your own wits. The ship that crashed into the ocean carried many supplies and utilities to help your chances of survival. For starting off, you craft the tools with the help of your pod that you crashed with. You need to dive deeper and deeper every time you need something better, though. You can't avoid the large depths like in real life. If you want to leave, you need to swallow your fears and leave your temporary home. Your objective for survival is clear after getting the scanning device, a tool allowing you to scan broken technologies that fell off of the Aurora and make them yourself. The planet holds enough resources to make this easy. You only need the will to gather, and you'll thrive. The loop of your progress is an addictive one. You'd scan devices dotting the ocean floor to make more. Progress is slow at the start, since you shouldn't really get too far from your pod or base if you've managed to get that far. You're limited severely by your oxygen count and how deep the ocean floor goes. As you explore and scan, you can go deeper, farther, longer under the waves. You access more, go to places you only got a far glimpse at, bright, wonderful places that make you immediately want to move where you've planted yourself. The planet of Subnautica is also a dangerous one. Not only do you have to worry about the ship you crashed on exploding and infecting the planet with radiation, the creatures of this planet consider you part of the ecosystem now. You get very little help in the forest. The plane you crashed with is just a commercial airline. It wasn't carrying anything that could give you a good upper hand. You are pretty much left to your own abilities. Those resources you find aren't just for one purpose. You need to use important resources that could go quite well to something else. Your house, your storage, fires, landmarks, to make your tools, to give you a better chance of surviving. Though you only need the will to gather, and you'll thrive. Go far enough, and you'll have plenty of resources to make all you'll need, and have plenty left to spare and store. Every waking second of the day is a second you should be preparing for the night, and you will need to prepare. They are hiding out there. The cannibals are a constant threat on the peninsula you live on. At first, you may just see them at a large distance. A group of travelers in a band moving to who knows where. You may just leave them alone, or maybe you think you found someone that can help you. That will hopefully be a mistake that you can learn from. The cannibals are a fierce fighting group, even if you start with fighting the dirt-covered starving members of this tribe. These weird, demented humans aren't just mindless zombies. One fight at the beginning of the day and you've doomed yourself a nightly visit. These cannibals are real humans, changed into fighting demons by some force of this peninsula. They travel in groups, know how to fight with strategy. They surround you from all sides when you're focused on fighting one. They get angry and more ferocious when you've taken some down, and retreat when their numbers thin. If you take the time to study them, you realize their aggression is a common expressor, even if they don't attack. Sometimes they wait in the trees to study you, or get up close to get a good look. They worship you like a god if you paint yourself red, like the man you saw in the opening. They are more docile if they don't see you cutting down trees. Even if they seem angry, they put much more thought into how they move than you would think. And if you take care of some by the day, you can be sure that more will come when day falls. You need to be ready to fight. Your hand-to-hand combat isn't super effective. You're a survivalist, not a brawler. Your attacks are quick and brutal. A one-on-one fight is decided in your favor the second you land a hit. You can make and find things that let you hit harder and faster. You can fight for days, but you won't get better at swinging back and forth. Desperation can lead to dangerous mods. Light your weapon on fire, and your enemies, or poison berries to, well, poison your foe as you fight. Confrontation can only get you so far. You can't pause to take medicine, and all items that heal take time. You need to have plans at the ready. You need to gather and make Molotovs, mines, grenades, bows, spears, ropes, bombs.
Lamp oil, you want it? It's yours, my friend.
Lay traps like tripwires with bombs. Leaf lines to set a light and make a wall of fire. You can run and hide by covering yourself in mud, making fur boots to walk quieter, and even using lizard skin covered in leaves to blend perfectly with the foliage. If you get followed, lead them to your base, surrounded by massive wood walls with spikes, spring traps, deadfalls, and nooses. With walls of traps and defenses, this forest has given you a fortress. The enemies you fight in Subnautica are much, much larger. There are minor annoyances that can hurt you, but the ones that can kill, those are massive leviathans that cover the oceans. They live in the faraway edges of the world, swimming high above the ground. Your alert to their presence will be their terrifying roar, their shadow, or the last thing you'll see before you get torn to shreds, their face. Even with how powerful and terrifying these leviathans are, you aren't able to do much to fight back. At the start, you can really only sneak your way about, try to not make sound and use caves and walls, and you'll likely be able to slither away and hide for a while. You do get some weapons as you progress with the tech you find, but these tools aren't going to do anything to harm these massive fish. The most effective thing you can do to fight is to halt them with the stasis rifle, firing a huge bubble that freezes the creature where it swims. You may be able to throw some rocks at it with a propulsion cannon, but that never really does much. Later on in the game, you build some vehicles. These can be modified with tools that can actually do some damage. None of them can kill though, unless you have a good hour on your hands and a lot of determination. This isn't such a bad thing though. Dedicating to hiding is something that does help terrify you no matter what point of progression you find yourself at. More importantly, if this was a game where you could run around the seafloor firing a minigun at massive sea creatures, it might impart the wrong message about exploring the hidden depths of our oceans. It helps give your pacifism a feeling of importance. This isn't your world that you get to colonialize and control. You are just trying to survive, like every single creature living here. To escape, you need all the resources to craft everything you need. You need to have a place to craft the highest quality tools, a place where you gather everything and have limitless power at your fingertips. Your base. Base building is simple. All you need is the building tool and the required resources. Its lack of complexity makes it easy to understand and easy to upgrade. Your base isn't really a fortress. It's basically one gigantic garage that's nuclear powered. You can also make it a fully reinforced shelter, or a wonderful underwater beach house. It's a shame that you don't get more sustainable power sources when you start, only getting solar panels. Moving entire bases and managing resources between two bases is a lot harder, making it a large and arduous process if you want to move someplace with a lot more to look at. Your base in the forest is one that knows no bounds. Snapping in place is a luxury you'll only rarely get with your house. You can take an easy route with the few pre-built houses you get, but that alone is a massive limiter. You have no bounds with how big your base is, or where you want to make it. You could look for a strategic spot, weigh the advantages and disadvantages. Maybe one spot has a few paths of entry and a water source, but few trees. Maybe one is flat with many resources, but it's a very popular spot with the cannibals. You could build up into the snow, with few cannibals, but have to constantly build and maintain a fire system. Even more limitless than where you build is how you build. No snapping may make building hard, but you can modify or add on to anything you want. You can have spiked walls and blockers, stacking log walls, gigantic towers, tree fortresses, and boat homes. Each house has its own advantages and disadvantages as well. Tree houses are off the ground and far from cannibals, but the trees can be knocked down, and if they are, you lose all the resources stacked in the house. Boathouses are large and can't be reached by the cannibals, but they don't allow for much expansion. Your personal fortress is easy to make and easy to improve. Your limit of improvement is only limited by your imagination. The forest you find yourself in is one that holds many of its own secrets. On first impression, it appears as just a forest. Exploring more, you find some irregularities. There are large villages, all covered in blood, with hanging survivors and locked suitcases. Large bare trees are surrounded by heads on spikes and bloodstains. The biggest thing you'll notice is the massive sinkhole in the center of the map. It looks miles deep, with clean cannibals roaming all around on the inside. Even a crashed military helicopter rests near the side. The biggest surprise, however, comes when you first die. After they drag you away, your view of the world is massively vertically expanded. The cave system under the surface is large and interconnected. It seems like it goes on with no end. Even when you think you've seen the largest thing the caves have to offer, they open up more and more, leaving large open rooms under the peninsula. The dripping ambience and flashing water reflection on the ceiling draw you in, bringing you closer to the things living under here. Subnautica has these caves too, just different in every describable way. The top of the world is filled with beautiful sights, red grass plains, kelp forests, large mountain ranges, massive mushroom forests, fields of floating luminescent balls held to the ocean floor by vines, and alien facilities. Going deeper is an inevitability on this planet. You can't leave without diving into that cave. The main difference is the flora and fauna of this planet has already had years to adapt to the environment under the land. They have made this their home, and they've had time to make this place nice and spiffy. The views under the crater are even better than above. There are extensive caves lit up by purple mushrooms, homes to long snake-like predators. A gigantic trench having dark and hidden animals that feed off the blood pods grown off of the local plants. Dark and hardly lit caves hide under the reefs and mountains. Under all of this is a large and foggy cave, hiding the fossils of long-dead creatures, larger than anything you've ever seen on the surface. This place has long tunnels formed from trees, and the most beautiful spot in the game. Even deeper than that is an even larger cave filled with several lakes of lava, topped with a large castle built of dried magma rock, circled by a massive dragon leviathan. It is the deepest point of the world you can go to, holding the greatest hidden secret of visitors from ages ago. Sadly, nothing about these two games is perfect. They're wonderful explorations of their settings, but the respective teams of these games were both incredibly small. They couldn't get everything perfect, and it's been made harder as time progresses. The map of Planet 4546b isn't one that is easily loadable. There are many factors of the environment that take a while to pop in. Sometimes it's quick and unnoticeable, other times you'll be far into the biome when the main identifier of that biome finally decides to load in. The worst effect of these loading times is the mushroom forest. The massive mushroom tops over the trees are likely to damage your vehicles once they load in, making traversing them when they haven't loaded dangerous, and the performance on consoles is even more abysmal. The forest, while having my slightly greater praise, is blatantly an unfinished game. While performance has never been a large problem, glitches are abound everywhere you go. I'd love to make a list, but the wiki curators have already made one for me. The limitation of modding your weapons isn't explained, and removing mods isn't something you get told happens. A survival guide where you find the placeable blueprints that help you build is very poorly organized. The furniture and decoration section seems purely aesthetic, even though you can get feathers from birdhouses, a valuable resource to help you make arrows. Frames seem important to holding the pictures you find, but you can put these drawings on any wall as you wish. Skull lamps offer a constant and bright light that doesn't need relighting. The catapult is also a useless defense item due to the fact that you can't really aim it. One of your stats you keep track of is your sanity. Despite seeming like an important stat, the only thing that happens with it is getting a new crafting page whenever it dips below 90%. It's a real shame that the sanity system isn't utilized. The way the difficulty system works in the game is that through every passing day, it gets harder to live on the surface, as there are more cannibal patrols and more mutants on the surface. This could have paired very well with the cave system, as not only is the difficulty set, and as far as I'm aware enemies don't respawn, Your sanity decreases while you explore them. This could have led to a very nuanced balancing act as you try to figure out which one is more valuable to spend your time in. The stats you can improve and see actual benefits from take ages to improve. You can walk faster and last longer running with better stats, but improving these, even with the best farming method, will only improve your stats by 1 point after hours, maybe even days. It makes the whole process feel artificially extended, especially when you hardly ever notice the gains of this training. Both of these stories have similarities in their starts. You are part of a plane ride that gets intercepted and crashes. You must explore the world you find yourself in, using scraps dropped by the crash and the resources in the world to survive. As you approach the end, new information is imparted, changing a lot of the context of what's happened up to this point. After spending ages finding spread about story items, you can piece together small details of what's happened. Several people, including children, have gone missing. At first, it appears to be the work of the cannibals, but you'll find details that imply it's actually the work of the man covered in red. He still has your son and is guiding him through the caves to something important. You aren't part of the first group here. Not only have Christian missionaries been living in the caves, there are multiple signs of an even older society living here. The old group appears to have had several advancements in architecture that have been lost to time. Large doors of obsidian that can only be opened using rock weights. After finding a keycord that only spawns in one spot on the entire peninsula, and a rebreather that only spawns in one spot on the entire peninsula, you can finally dive down into the sinkhole. At the end of the sinkhole is a large metal door, clearly human-made. A sight that isn't seen on the rest of the peninsula. I really need to give praise for how well this section is presented. The change from blobby caves to massive caverns to this sterile environment is always jarring, even if this is my 20th playthrough. You are led down a long, sterilized concrete bunker corridor. You can explore through a large office and a science lab, finding masses of flesh that seem almost impossible to form. And a dead Dr. Matthew Cross, the red man that took your son. Exploring broken facilities, you find your son, Timmy, dead on a relic bed. After grieving for his death, you realize that this obsidian obelisk has the ability to revive people from the dead. A nearby screen tells you that you need a sacrifice of another child. You find and fight a mutated and mutilated Emily, the daughter of Matthew. After a long and hard fight, you take her body back to the relic, only to be told that your sacrifice for Timmy needs to be alive. You also learn that Emily was revived by the machine, and that the horrific infection inside of her is a side effect of using this. You walk ahead and find a massive relic pulsing with power. On this peninsula, there are 4 relics. One is the obelisk, a device that can bring people back from the dead for the price of another life. 2 is a post-game item, causing others around you to either be completely peaceful or send them into an uncontrollable rage. The 3rd is implied, being the relic that supposedly causes the madness in the cannibals on the peninsula. The final is right in front of you at this moment. Before you is a screen and 2 options. After spending ages finding message scrolls, you can piece together small details of what happened. Your travel here wasn't to colonialize or research a planet. You weren't the first person here. Before you were a small exploration team flying a ship called the Degassi. They were traveling through space when flying too close to the planet you've crashed on. Even before the Degassi was an alien race that's long extinct. These aliens went extinct due to a massive infection called the Carabacterium. The only place this bacteria still exists is the planet you find yourself on. There were measures implemented ages ago that are still in place, even after their extinction. The main one that's keeping everyone here is a massive enforcement platform. It's a large gun the size of a building. It detects ships coming in close contact with the planet and shoots them down to the surface. Ignoring how costly and ineffective this method is, you still need to explore and find a cure in order to leave and return home. After diving deeper and deeper and deeper into the ocean, you find and dig through more and more alien facilities, finding more info and gaining direction on how to escape the planet. You get led down a long path into the Lost River and lava zones and find the main containment facility. At the end of all this, you find the last remaining Sea Emperor Leviathan.
Are you here to play? Others came here once. They built these walls. They played alone. They bored me. Now they're gone. And instead, we have you.
She can speak telepathically, and she offers to give you the cure for this infection in return for making a hatching enzyme for her babies in order to make sure her species continues on after her death. You get led on one long fetch quest, teleporting to many biomes across the world, gathering seeds and plant samples in order to create the enzyme. After you open the eggs and free her children to the world, she gives you the cure, and you can now leave this planet. The ending of Subnautica deals with a basic message of life preservance. It asks how far you would go to save a species, a planet even, no matter how much effort it'd take. It really doesn't do well imparting this message, though. The message is most impactful when it's the most recent thing on your mind, the most important piece of the puzzle. Subnautica has this final piece, when you release the child Leviathans and get cured of the virus, and it does impart a feeling of hope, even all the way to the enforcement platform, as you go to end the quarantine over the planet. Then you realize it's here you stagnated. The want to explore this alien planet hasn't gone away. It feels like there's something that's still greater to find. After all, you've been given a few new tools to keep your exploring going for longer. But there's nothing new here. You've delved into the deepest corners, dug into the narrowness of the alien hallways. The only thing keeping you from leaving is you. You've been given a feeling that a better future is on its way for the planet and want to return home. But you've just been given the tools to keep going, even though there isn't anything new. Even if I do give higher praise to the forest, Subnautica is the game that I always come back to play. It's the one that I play the most. But even if I do enjoy my time with it more, the worst thing about it is that it ends, and I really wish it hadn't. The forest does leave something more important with you. It asks you, how much would you sacrifice to save your child? It asks it in a more solid way. When the question is posed in real life, it tends to be some Reddit atheist continually making the number larger and larger to make you sound like a madman for having a preference for your family over others. This time, the question is much more concrete. It tries to give that amount a salted line of how many you would sacrifice. It starts with a sizable number, a whole plane full of people, or your child. The question is made even more muddy when you realize that another child must be sacrificed to save yours. It also makes you question how you are the one to make that decision. The previous plane destroyer did the same thing. He's a villain, the first one you see, and he kidnapped your child. What's the difference between you two? You've both chosen your child over a plane, kidnapped somebody's child just for a small chance that you could bring yours back. There's even a chance that the monster that became of Megan could become of your son. Could you still be able to do it? The problem is, it answers why you can do it. You're rich. Your character is already a TV star. There's no doubt that you'll be okay when everything is said and done. You can turn this into money and fund the solution for Timmy. The other guy was just some ignored scientist that went crazy ages ago. But you are the one that ends the cycle of sacrifice just by happenstance of your popularity. There is some nuance to the question. It isn't hiding the fact that any parent thinks their child is going to be the one that can do something important and be remembered as greater than them. This shows a scenario where that's true. Eric, the player, is able to give his wealth to Timmy. He's just as aware of what occurred on the peninsula as you are. He's young enough to be able to stop the company that did this. It shows you his plan, the island he wants to go to, the struggle against the infection that drives him. Not every continuation of a violent cycle is justified, but this one is different. It's a realization that comes out of nowhere, but in my opinion, it fits. You just got lucky as the player all around. You managed to get lucky and have wealth to make this decision not a problem, but you also got lucky that you were a survivalist before you crashed. Your survival was already insured before the plane ever crashed. The other passengers, both of your plane and the one that you crashed, well, they weren't as lucky. You do get another option, though. You get to let this cycle end. You can let the past go. You can let your power go. It can scar you forever. You'll continue shaking knowing what you've done, how you have abandoned your own son, letting his death be at the hand of a madman as his father is passed out miles away. But it all ends here. The insanity of the peninsula will stay here. The planes will fly over without ever being interrupted, and the violence against others can finally stop. But you won't be able to sleep well after this. You'll have no one to understand what you've gone through. You could still even stop Sahara alone. You have the evidence with you after all. Even if you can't speak with an even voice, the device you take and the cannibals alone will be enough to start some investigation. You can give up your luck here, make things more equal, but you'll never forget. Is the sacrifice worth it? Oh my god. It's finally over. I'm not joking when I say I started writing this sophomore year of high school. I just graduated. This video has taken literal ages to make. I'd like to thank my art teacher for giving me the inspiration to keep trying to do something with writing, even if it is just a YouTube video. My girlfriend for constantly being there and supporting me, and my parents for somehow being able to put up with me not having a job for a whole month. There are a few other things I wanted to talk about, like the way the difficulty is done in the forest with the days, and I really hope that they actually do what I suggested to make the sanity system more in depth. I really wish I had talked a little bit more about the mutants instead of just the cannibals, and I did want to talk about how garbage the Subnautica console port is, but I need to get this out. This has taken me so long to just start this project. I'd rather have it released decent instead of never being released and me trying to constantly make it perfect. And you should absolutely stick around. I've already started writing, halfway through done writing a script for the next video. And this one should be a lot easier because it's not a dual review. As much as I like that format, it's a lot of effort to record and it's a massive strain on my computer. So next one should be a lot quicker to make. About one of the best horror games of all time. And I'm not exaggerating about that. I have no social media. Good luck. God damn it. Sets you can improve and see benefits from takes ages. Why am I so much louder?